So as always, how about we get started with some Q&A? But isn't it 1 p.m. GMT now? Whoops. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. In the meantime, I will quickly do something that I wanted to do before the stream but didn't get to. So the cookies are from you, Inge. Yeah, thanks a lot. I got them. I will actually eat them on stream today. Really appreciated it. I was wondering who sent them because they were just from like this random food delivery company. But I had a suspicion that they were yours. So let me quickly... Oh no, it's 1 p.m. GMT. It's probably 2 p.m. UK time, but you're on daylight savings time, so you are 1 hour ahead of GMT. Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Let's see here. Alright, so with all of this committed, we have something, a nice day to start from today. Hi everyone, how are you doing? I feel like there's a lot of regulars here today, so probably you don't even have as many questions, but if there's some new guys and you have questions that you want answered, now would be a great time for that. In the meantime, let me eat one of Inge's delicious, individually packaged for some reason cookies. How will mods be loaded? Will they just be injected? In the beginning, yes, it will be a very simple, just place your files here and they will get loaded and you can do basically whatever you want with your code. And then after a while, when I have the time to implement a more intelligent mod API, and after I see what kinds of mods people create, it will get more elaborate. I will announce that in a second what's happening today. Why exactly do you build the neighboring cities in such an early phase of the game? Wouldn't it be better to code a standalone city first? Well, the purpose the neighboring cities serve is to create the kind of economic environment for your city where there's an initial set of demands, because if there are no demands at the beginning, you can't really start a city because everything would have to be self-sustained from the first moment. Also, it's not really realistic that a city just gets started practically out of nowhere. I mean, the exceptions are probably the settlements created by explorers, but that's not really what Citybound is about. It's more about modern cities, which kind of always get started between existing cities on important transport routes, for example. And so yeah, that's why neighboring cities are important right now. And we will continue working on them today. I will announce in more detail what we will do in a second. I noticed that you never bothered to upgrade the terrain. Is there any reason why you wouldn't start doing the terrain in the whatever? The reason I'm not doing terrain yet is because it's not essential to gameplay. I can get gameplay to work completely without terrain in 2 dimensions, and that means that I should do that first because gameplay is more important than any visual element of the game. So even though terrains are personally really close to my heart, and my goal really is to have beautiful terrains in Citybound, I'm deliberately not working on them because I want to get gameplay going first and get that and make sure that that is fun first before I focus on details like terrain. Do the neighboring cities grow? Not yet, but this is what we will work on today. Hi Lord Sleepyhead, I saw your really elaborate posts on the subreddit, and I will, like, I had a quick read of them and I will think more about them and respond to them when I find the time. Yeah, definitely need a gold chain. Will the neighboring cities' demands be randomly generated? Yeah, this could be an option. I mean, this is kind of a starting parameter of the map. For example, you could say you want to start on a map where there's a very strong industrial city next to you, and this will of course shape how your city will develop. So right now the demands of the neighboring cities are just hard-coded, but by varying them you can create all kinds of interesting scenarios. You mean like what, like this? Doesn't even fit my head, like this, like this. Now I look like a douchebag, let's not do that. Alright. Yeah, there even are already apartment buildings that have flat roofs. Yeah, there already is mixed zoning. I can even show you in the game. There is a, as you can see here, there's a residential commercial mixed zone. And if I zone that, we should see, oh, come on. Why is nothing happening? Because there's no demand for shops, I guess. Okay, so let's create demand for shops by first zoning normal residential. And let me remove the text here. So now that was a little bit of demand for shops, you can see that we now have these buildings here which kind of have these how do you call these colored things that shops have in front of them? Basically these buildings have both shops and flats inside of them, and you can even check that out here. You can see there's a worker household and a food shop in the same building, so that's already possible. How well will oceans be detailed? Will you add any waves, sun glare, or anything noticeable? Well, I will of course try to make them look good. The nice thing about water is that it's pretty easy to get it pretty good looking. I don't know how high quality waves I will be able to get. For example, I've almost never seen a game that had proper rolling waves, like actual 3D rolling waves next to shores. If that's something that I can pull off, I will try. But even if we have to settle for less, I think I can make water look really beautiful. one-way streets are possible. I just have to adapt the UI to make them more usable right now. Today I'll stream for 3 hours again. The road seems small in comparison to the buildings. Yeah, I mean, you have to keep in mind that they don't have sidewalks yet, so they look about, I don't know, almost half too small that like they should be, right? So your feeling about this is probably right, but I'm trying to use real world measurements wherever possible, even if they are just approximate. So, but the proportions of everything should be right. So I guess the reason why they look small is just because they don't have sidewalks yet. Yeah, I put a lot of thought into the distribution of colors of cars, and black and silver are really the most probable. Will the game have the possibility to dig canals? Probably. Long-term question. Do you plan to make the game requiring thinking about math, economics, or rather casual player friendly? This is a very good question, and I guess my answer there is to try to kind of serve both the UI and everything, and hopefully the game manual or tutorial or whatever it is should be very casual friendly, but and it should be relatively easy to get some kind of city going. But if you want to get a very efficient or very happy or very economically friendly city going, you will have to actually think about these kind of complicated problems. And I mean, ideally the game would start out really easily so you can get to know it, and then will make you curious about these problems that exist in real cities and slowly make you think about them. That's kind of my goal there. I hope that makes sense. Have you started any work on the terraforming aspect, and how important is it going to be? No, as I said earlier, I didn't start working on terrain yet, and I said why. And terraforming in-game, like during building of the city, won't be that important. I mean, you basically only need it when you want to make very difficult terrain usable for roads or buildings, and then it will cost something, but I don't think that this is something that will happen very often. And how important terraforming before you start a map will be, I don't know, because I will mainly focus on procedural terrain. But I guess there will always be a lot of people who want to actually create their own terrain. Click create parking lots. You mean like public parking lots? Will the in-game currency be very strong? What do you mean by very strong? Yeah, I will try to go for realistic prices for everything. Yeah, I mean, or at least realistic proportions of prices. Will we be able to plot out multiple bus routes? Yes, you will. I said before that the kind of amount of detail I want to go for regarding public transport like buses is you won't manage time schedules, but you will be able to custom draw your routes like you want them. Have you thought about how roads will interact with uneven terrain once it becomes relevant? yes, of course, I've thought a lot about that, and it is a really difficult problem, but right now I'm not worrying about it. But I already have some ideas for solutions to some of the most common problems that pop up with that. I'm using JavaScript and WebGL, and I'm not using WebGL directly, but I'm using Three.js. And Citybound runs inside something that's called Node WebKit, which is basically a special version of the Chrome browser that you can run in full screen, and that allows you to kind of package the game like a native game, even though it's written in JavaScript. How will you balance out what people want? Some people seem to want traffic simulation, others a landscaping simulation. Well, I'm trying to implement the basics of everything a little bit, because I'm always keeping in mind that people can always extend it later. And also I'm kind of building what I want for myself and put focus on the things that I think are interesting in city building games. And then just see how many people share my taste. But again, keeping in mind that if they want to specialize or are very interested in one particular aspect of the game, they can always extend that part using mods. In real life, things become more expensive when they are scarce. Can you model this? I'm kind of not sure yet how complicated I want the economy to be, whether I actually want to model prices for everything, because it would add a lot of complexity in the code, probably not computational complexity, but complexity in the code. And I want to avoid that if possible, and instead try to model the economy on a higher level. But let's see, maybe I will have to actually implement prices. Where does water in Germany come from? Here in California, it comes from recycled sewage, also tastes metallic. Well, sucks to be you, I guess. Here in Germany, it comes directly from the mountains. So at least here in Munich, it's really tasty. I guess it's also from recycled sewage, but like the regulations on that are so high and they're very careful about that, so it's really high quality. It's actually higher quality than bottled water. Will there be community gardens? I mean, they could be a kind of park, right? Because I'm thinking now, what does the city have to do with that? Is that actually something that the city manages? I guess so. So maybe that could be a form of park in the game. If you can normally watch it on high and the transcoded versions seem to lag, try watching it in original quality again. Sometimes that works better. Will game economics be free market, opposite, or between? For example, private healthcare, transport, and so on. I guess I will use actually my home country Germany as an example, where it's mostly free market, but stuff like healthcare is regulated and in some cases even provided by the government. So I guess I want to go for a, I don't know, healthy mix there. But this is again something that mods can change, of course. Yeah, this is something that I actually want to do quite soon, to create a tool where you can design your own procedural building rules, but I don't know when I'll get around to that. There was a thread on Reddit about, you mean JavaScript probably, and multi-threading. Yeah, I will probably use web workers for Citybound. I will have to do some research on them because I've never used them so far. And my biggest worry with them is that the overhead that is due to the communication between several web workers is so high that it's not even worth using them in the first place, but I will obviously have to experiment with that. I mean, so far I'm just running everything inside one core, and I will just have to do some small scale experiments to see whether I can actually make the whole architecture of Citybound multi-core. Will building upgrading be implemented like in a new SimCity? It will probably be more realistic, because in a new SimCity buildings get upgraded if they have the proper road and people are happy enough, right? I think I will actually make it based on construction costs and the profitability of larger buildings, and only if a larger building in a certain place would be more profitable for the owner of that building, it will get built. How will you design code bigger structures like airports? Will they have variations? Well, I also want bigger structures like airports to be procedural, so I will have to do that. I'm not completely sure yet how to do that or how difficult it will be. I had some initial thoughts about that, but I guess I will just see when I get around to that. Probably in the future. I mean, right now I'm only thinking about the neighboring cities in this abstract way, but in the future they might actually be connections to other cities of your own or even other players. But as I said, I'm focusing on single player and one map right now. Will pollution be widespread or focused in one point of origin? I guess a mix of both. Like if you create something that adds to pollution, it will of course add a lot of local pollution, but also kind of raise the global pollution severity. Why do you wear hats inside your house? Well, the only reason I'm wearing this cap today is because my hair basically looks like a bird's nest and I'm trying to hide that. Are your agents written up in such a way that it would make it possible to make them ever more complex over time, adding wants and needs and ever more complex behavior rules into the basic framework? Yes. You can basically make them as complex as you want. Your only obstacle will be processing power, which will of course increase. Will we be able to build piers on water? Probably, I don't know. What is this button supposed to do? This will be the button for the density tool, which you can use to regulate maximum density, because for example, maybe you don't want growth in certain areas of your city, and using that tool, which isn't implemented yet, you will be able to set maximum density everywhere in your city, and the buildings there will have to adhere to that. You mentioned buildings will be generated procedurally. Does this rule out the possibility of modeling buildings from real life for use in the game? No, it does not rule that out. I won't implement any real life buildings, but I'm aware that there are lots of people who actually want real life buildings in their city. But there's nothing in the procedural system that kind of prevents that. So yeah, modders will be able to just implement or just add real life buildings as well. Resource for airport design. Okay, awesome. I love stuff like that. I will actually save that to my research folder for Citybound and have a look at it later. Will citizens be more detailed so we are able to see what they are doing throughout their day? You can already kind of see that. I mean, let's quickly create a small city again. Just, how about just add this one road, zone some residential, wait for some people to move in. And you see people just moved in, and this guy, for example, is even driving to work. We can't click on individual cars yet, but if we did that, we would basically see the same kind of information. So you can kind of already follow them around through the day. Will there be toll roads in Citybound? I have an idea for tolling systems. Can you post that somewhere so people can discuss it and I remember it? What is this? Yeah, I've read about that roundabout. Yeah, if it's possible to create something like this in Citybound, I think I will have succeeded. Will there be road signs eventually? Yes, but again, this is really a detail. I'd highly recommend you to make a copy of your Dropbox files. Why? Isn't that what Dropbox already does? Alright, let's do a couple more minutes of Q&A. Yeah, I mean, procedural road signs would be awesome. Imagine the game inventing names for parts of your city, or you being able to name them and then actually signs showing up with the correct names on them. Are you happy with Sublime? Yes, I'm very happy with it. The topic today we will continue. Okay, I can just announce it now. I didn't even do that yet. Today we will work on continue to work on neighboring cities, and we will make them grow and evolve based on your city's interaction with them, and I will talk about that in more detail in a couple minutes. How come you just ignore some questions? I don't know, because they're stupid or too personal and I don't want to answer them, maybe. If you think I ignored one that's relevant and interesting, please post it again. Will we see some 4-lane roads today? Yes. Here's a 4-lane road, you saw one. The problem is I didn't get time to work on multi-lane traffic yet. There still needs to be some stuff fixed, and before that it doesn't really make sense to use small lane roads because the cars can properly make use of them. All right, last questions, please, and then we'll get started. Whoa. Yeah, this is also a feature that I really liked in the new SimCity, that you could upgrade your civic buildings instead of having to build new ones or even remove old ones and build new ones. The way civic buildings work in Citybound will also be based on zones where you have this special zone, for example, for a police station. And if you zone it, there will be built a procedural police station. And I think the way I want to do it is that if you want that police station to become bigger, you can just increase the zoned area for it, and it will maybe, for example, based on the amount of money you put into police, it will upgrade it itself and procedurally add new side buildings. How long before we can start seeing people? Well, I said that I will try to get everything working just based on cars for the alpha and try to get that fun. And as soon as that works, pedestrians are actually the very first thing that I want to implement. What made you decide to use Node WebKit in JavaScript? Yeah, I've answered that a million times. Just please try to... I don't know if someone transcribed it to the Q&A sections in the wiki yet. Here on the stream Q&A session, have a look there if I answered it or at the past live streams. How will the agents know exactly where they're going? What do you mean, how will they know where they're going? I mean, each citizen has a fixed workplace and home and can choose to shop at a specific shop, and will just do pathfinding to get there. I'm using Three.js, which is built on top of WebGL. Well, thanks. I hope that I'm at least an inspiration to people who want to get into programming, to kind of give them a preview what it's like if you've gained some experience. Because I think in the beginning it can be very frustrating if even the simplest things take you very long. But I think especially in this phase it's really important to see where you will be if you just keep at it. So yeah, I hope to inspire people with these streams. Highway interchanges with multiple hate layers. Roads are only 2D so far, so that will only be possible once I make them 3D. Why is that impossible? I mean, you can just add a random chance of them getting lost. That's possible. Will I allow to translate Citybound into different languages? Sure, why not? Alright, last questions, please. Okay, since there are no more questions, I will get some more water and then we will get started with programming. Be right back. Alright, so we actually have two things that we could work on today. And I'll just let you guys decide what you want to see, because I feel that both are equally important. The first option is that we kind of implement the second half of the agent interaction with neighboring cities, because so far we only implemented that citizens from our city can work and go shop in neighboring cities, but we didn't implement the reverse, that kind of the neighboring city can send commuters and shoppers to your city. So this is the first thing that we could do. The second thing that we could do is to have to model some kind of evolution of the neighboring cities. basically making them grow based on your interaction with them. So if you demand a lot of one particular resource or a lot of jobs, for example, your neighboring city will slowly try to satisfy that. And yeah, this is the second thing we can do. So yeah, let's try doing a straw poll. So the first thing would be agents from neighboring cities, or neighboring cities evolution. I hope it's clear what I mean by that, because I just explained that. So here's the link. Oh, I do not care. All right. Go ahead and vote there. Let's give it some time to settle. Let's wait a little bit more. Won't simulating neighboring cities cause a lot of CPU usage? Yes, but that's why we want to keep them very abstract. For example, if we would model agents from neighboring cities, they can't be full citizens like the ones we have in our city with all of the simulation going on, but they have to be kind of very simple fake citizens. But by the looks of this here, it looks like we're going actually to implement neighboring cities evolution, which I guess is also what I would prefer to do. Okay. Yeah, I mean, at the moment, these neighboring cities don't have anything to do with other cities that you create, so let's not even worry about it yet. Alright, so let's do neighboring cities evolution. I don't know, and let me move the chat over now, who of you was there, but what we did in the last few streams was we actually implemented neighboring cities as households. So you can see that neighboring cities are now here along with farms and worker households and so on, and they work in basically the same way that people can work there. They have a production of resources, they can sell resources, and they can consume resources. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make it possible for a household to change, for example, the amount of stuff it produces or consumes. So how about, as a first approximation, we just add kind of a linear growth to our neighboring cities, so they slowly produce more, sell more, and also consume more. And once we've got that going, we can think about having the neighboring city actually react to what you do in your city. So a while back we added this possibility to have an update function for each household, which we used for farms and factories to basically care about their resources that they have and to deliver them to shops using delivery trucks. And we will use the same update functionality for our neighboring cities now. So let's just implement that. Yeah, you are right that the code overview looks very copy-pasty, which is always a sign that you can write your code in a more intelligent way, which I hope I will do soon. But right now I'm just, like you say, copy-paste everything, and then when I find the time, I try to see the patterns and come up with something more elegant and reusable. All right. So what do we want to do? I mean, what we could do is, let me quickly have a look at this update daily production just to make sure I completely understand how it works. Yeah, okay. So how about we try something very extreme first so we can see if something happens. So how about we just multiply the daily production by 1.1 every time we call this update function. I mean, this will grow pretty damn quickly, but let's just see if this works. So if we start the game, we should see the demands slowly go down for all of our production. Yeah, that's correct. So that's probably still way too fast, but let's do the same for our demands and sales. Whoops, maybe we should use proper yeah. Yeah, this is what I mean. After we get some basic growth going, we will actually make it react. So if we build industries, farms, they will build houses and so on. Okay, let's do the same here. And again, this will look very copy-pasty, but we will do it in a more elegant way in a second. And do the same for consumption. So now we should see the demands for production and sales that are already negative get more negative. And we should see the demands rise. That's not even 10% a day, that's 10% at every update, which is less than 1 in-game minute, which is of course much too much, but I just want to have a visible effect right now. Shouldn't a neighboring city be a second class of objects, since in theory it should contain all the objects that the city you're playing contains? Yeah, but the problem is we want neighboring cities to be much more simple, because we can't afford to simulate them as completely as our own city. I mean, that's why they are neighboring cities that are just the environment. So the way we decided to do that is to implement them as households. Alright, so I think this worked. We can actually see everything rising. Right now they are only being simulated, that's correct, and they are much more simple than your own city. Alright, so this seemed to work. Why did that happen? Oh, let me watch that again, I didn't pay attention. Did that just... Yeah, that just draws down there. Okay, so to kind of describe what I want to do now, I said I want to have the neighboring city react to what you are doing. So let's take a particular example. Let's say you have industry in your city but not enough workers. So what I want to happen is that the neighboring city will actually offer more work, but very slowly. So the way the player can start using that is either he decides that he wants to offer more work in his city and quickly zone some residential and make sure that these workers live in his city, or if he doesn't do anything about it, either because he doesn't care or he deliberately doesn't want more workers in his city, then the neighboring city will slowly take care of that. So that's kind of how you will be able to specialize your city, basically just by choosing which demands you want to fulfill in your city and which ones the neighboring cities should take care of. Let me know what you think about that idea. It's not possible to remove and add neighboring city connections right now, they're just hard-coded, but this will come in the future. Yeah, just let me know what that sounds like to you, what I just explained. Alright, so hard-coded is basically, in this case it means that I actually coded it in a way so that there's exactly 2 neighboring cities and there's exactly the existing connection to them, and there's no way for the player to create more connections. This is what hard-coded means in this scenario. In general, it only means that the person who implemented something only implemented one particular case and didn't include the option for something else. Did I see this? Yeah, I saw this, but it's not important right now because we're not thinking about the regional level yet. Yeah, exactly. I know, but this is not Q&A anymore. I mean, we're already thinking about implementation, and yeah. Nothing but an airport. I mean, if you have the money for that, sure, that would work, I guess. Because I guess it also works in real life, no? But you would have to invest into that as a city. By the way, I'm just waiting a little bit before I get started to see your reaction, because I think it's very interesting to see that. Yeah, I'm not thinking about PC neighbors right now or multiplayer. Right now, all the cities will just be NPC cities that are simulated. Yeah, I know, but right now it's not important how the connections are defined, but what's more important is how the neighboring cities work. As I said, I'm not thinking about regional at all yet. I really appreciate that you guys share your ideas about it, but I'm really not thinking about it yet. Alright, so let's actually get started with this neighboring city reacting to you thing. So the first thing we will need to do is we will actually need to give each household that is interested in that picture of the demand situation in our city. And of course neighboring cities will be interested in that because they will grow based on that, but I think this is also something that's interesting in general because maybe existing businesses in your city might also grow depending on the demand in your city. So let's try to also supply the demands and production rates in this update function. Please ask this question again in the next Q&A section. All right. So let's go to our city module, which is kind of huge. I will need to refactor some stuff out there. At the moment, this does a lot. Okay, let me think about how we want to do that. Okay, so how about we just directly pass this into our update function. Update households, where is it? All right, so let's also pass in our city daily production, city daily sales, and city daily consumption. Maybe you can introduce a penalty to products and people from a neighboring city. Yeah, I mean, this will come into play when we include, for example, the distance they have to travel somewhere, because people will, of course, always prefer to get stuff in their own city. All right. I'm not streaming at a lower quality. It should be the same if you watch at source quality. Alright, so now that we pass this in, we can get this as parameters here. Total daily production, total daily sales, and total daily consumption. Alright, let's remove this again and now start adding logic. So let's start with something simple that we can also see. So let me think about that. What could we use for that? Yeah, we could start with food. Let's start with food. So let's first implement if total daily production of food is smaller than total daily consumption, we will do two things. We will update. We will increase our daily production by just some number. Let me think what we want to use there. Let's use 50. Again, these are magic numbers, but we can refactor them out into constants in a second, but I just want to try it. And at the same time, let's increase our demanded work. So okay, let's call it additional food to produce. Whoops. And we will also increase our daily consumption. Now let me clean this up a little bit. Of work accordingly. And we will increase that by, we actually have a constant for that, and that is called food produced per farmer, which tells us how much food one farmer can produce, and we will of course increase our demand for work using this factor. I can increase the font size. Sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about increasing the font size. Alright, to make this effect visible, how about we start out with actually not enough food, so our neighboring city actually consumes more food than it, I don't know, let's say it consumes 1,300. So more than it produces, so it should first try to satisfy its own demand and then also the demand of our city. So let's see if that works. Whoops. All right. Yeah, that's what I said earlier about modding. In the beginning, it will just replace the constant actually inside this file here. But as I said, as soon as I get a feel for what people actually want to modify, I will try to cleanly extract that and make it more accessible. Alright, so let's see if this works. If we look at our demands, there is no demand for production anymore, I think. Now if we... It might actually satisfy it too quickly now, so we can't actually see something happening. So if we now zone residential and thereby increase demand for food production, the neighboring city should slowly satisfy that, but also increase demand for work. Alright, also let me make the fluctuation due to our imperfect knowledge a little less extreme. Let's do maybe this much, and also let's add a console log here to see that happen. Using more food in neighboring city. Okay. I have an arrow there, so no wonder nothing happens. This is part of C. Alright. Now it looks good, and we see it starts producing more food in the neighboring city. So why is it lagging? Alright. Now it's stopped. But if we add residents, it should start producing more again. Yeah. Have you implemented residents driving to neighboring cities to work yet? Yes, as you can see here. And if so, which side of the map will they go to? Well, depends on which city they found a job in. Yeah, I mean, we should include a factor how quickly and how much it reacts. But right now they just get randomly assigned their job. Basically, they try to find a job, and every household that offers jobs can be randomly selected to become their workplace, and this could be either households inside your city or it could be a neighboring city. But right now, because there are no businesses in our city, all of them work in one of the two neighboring cities. So yeah, how about we actually make that grow a little slower? Let's only increase that by like 10 every update, so we get a chance to react quicker than our neighboring city. So we see there's positive production demand. So now we should be able to add farms here. Yeah, that is correct. And now we satisfied this demand with our one farm. So now let's try increasing residential until the neighboring city has to supply food again. Great to have you, Isotope. Thanks. Let's see if the neighboring city still reacts when we need new food. Right now it still seems... yeah, it doesn't react, because if we have more demand for food, we will actually satisfy that ourselves, because we still have left for space for farms left. So let's accelerate everything and see what happens. Raw materials demand is basically completely supplied by the neighboring city, since there is no way to produce raw materials for you yet, so the neighboring city completely has to supply it, so please just ignore it right now. And you can actually see that this also works on a micro economy level here. Remember when we implemented the delivery trucks, you can see that the farm actually sells food to our neighboring city. You're correct, B-dubs. Right now there is no preference for closer jobs. They really just get chosen randomly. Alright, so we satisfied our demand for work, so let's increase that again with something like a factory. And shops. Whoa. We need even more shops. Alright. So now we don't have any space for farms left, so in a second we should see the neighboring city supply more food again. Let's zone more commercial. Yeah, this is like the most boring city ever, just along a road. What do you mean with does residential commercial work yet? Yes, it does. Since farms are jobs, can you make the ones who work there drive to work with a tractor? Yeah, that would be a fun detail. I will keep that in mind. Let's actually have a look at our neighboring city and see how much it produces now. Okay, now it produces 1,600 food, so it increased, it definitely increased its amount of production, I think. Oh, and we've got an exception, that's unfortunate. Okay, but it seems to be stuck there. Can we actually... Okay, and how much do we produce in total? Okay, so we are still producing a little more than we consume. So we reached some kind of equilibrium here, but that's fine. We will add the other resources in a second. Yeah, I will probably add that. We once had that, but I will add it again. Yeah, if there's demand for both residential and commercial, you will get these combined shop and residential buildings, but only then. Maybe delete some farms and see how the neighboring city reacts. Great idea, let's do that. So if we delete our first, let's unzone them so they don't immediately come back. Lag. Let me slow down the game. Unzone this here. And then delete all of our farms. Now we suddenly have a lot of demand for food again, and now we should see our neighboring city react to that. That's a great idea to test it. Yeah, and as you can see, it slowly starts producing more food. And we should also see an increased demand for work. So yeah, it seems to work slowly. Yeah, D-Zone was glitchy because the game was running at, what is it, 64 times acceleration, and that's still a little laggy. Yeah, I know you said that like a million times. I have it in the back of my head, I just didn't get around to that yet. Alright, so our little system seems to work for food, so let's add other resources. What can we do next? Yeah, let's actually make this raw materials thing a little more realistic by just producing a little bit and then having the neighboring city react by creating a kind of industry that we can't even create. And kind of try to get this symbiotic relationship between the cities. So raw materials, additional raw materials to produce. Let's do 100 raw materials. Okay, raw materials, but this should be a capital R. Whoops. As should this. And now we have to add something like raw materials produced per worker. And let's set that to just 30, for example. So we have to divide that by raw materials produced per worker. Producing more raw materials in neighboring city. Right, did I forget anything? No, seems good. Let's see if that works. So now what we can do is we can first create some residential and create demand for a factory, and then use that factory to create demand for raw materials, which will in turn increase demand for residential in our city. Let's see if that works. So let's first zone a lot of residential here. Until we see a demand for factories. Speed that up. Okay, let's try to keep building our city until we have enough demand for products actually. Alright, so now we have some demand for factory, and let's see if we can use that to create demand for raw materials, and in turn have that create demand for work from our neighboring city. Alright, that only used a little bit of raw materials. Crap. Maybe we have to make the initial supply of raw materials lower. Yeah, I think we'll have to do that. So let's have the other city just produce like maybe no raw materials at all. Let's see if that works. That's great to hear that you like the commercial buildings. Yeah, and I'm aware that the residential buildings look like letters. I will try to make them more varied and add other architectural styles soon. They were just the first thing that I kind of came up with. Right, let's see the city grow. Right, we have demand for a factory. Right now, no demand for raw materials. So if we create one, we should now see a demand for raw materials, and yeah, that now our neighboring city tried to produce more raw materials, but apparently the factory only needed 200 of those. So let's see how many jobs did that create. Raw materials produced per worker. This only created like 6 or 7 workplaces. So how about actually lowering the amount of raw materials one worker can produce drastically? I mean, this might not be realistic right now, but I just want to experiment with what that means for the relation between the two cities. Also, sorry if I'm using the same layout like every time or a similar one, but right now I'm just trying to quickly test out things. I mean, I could even save this before any houses appear and then reload it. Let's try doing that. Save it. Did it work? Yes. So if I load it now, we can always use this as a base. Alright, we have demand for a factory. Let's see, did that happen? Huh. I think that worked. So let's see how much our neighboring city produces now. Ah, did we still have growth here? That's interesting. Alright, but I think this is also working. So, okay, what else? Yeah, same for me. I'm really looking forward to that as well. Right, let's add the other resources. For example, I mean, I don't know, should we implement all of them right now? Right, can we do this in a more generic way? Probably not. So I think we will just have to do a lot of copy pasting, even though that's not really nice. What do you guys think? Should I reintroduce some kind of natural growth to our neighboring cities, so we kind of have a combination of the city reacting and also growing on its own? What do you think? Yeah, right now it's stagnating, but that's also a problem of the way economy is implemented right now, because there isn't really any speculation. People just wanna fill any gaps, and there also isn't any competition. Yeah, okay, let's try to add that, but I think we can do this in a more generic way. So growth factor, let's do something very subtle, like or first something extreme again to kind of test it out. I mean, this is ridiculous, but let's do it. So for all neighboring city daily production, produce resource, we just grow with a linear factor for all resources. Yeah, that's kind of the idea. But as I said earlier, I want the neighboring city to react slower than you can, and you can use that to kind of choose what you want to have in your city. Yeah, that's why I want the growth to be very, very subtle. Yes, Yeah, I mean, we didn't really implement happiness yet at all, or not on a like large scale. But I will keep that in mind, that this is also an important factor. Alright, so for each produced resource, alright, so now we should also see, so now we should see this ridiculous growth for all produced resources. Yeah, I think people suggesting that the growth of neighboring cities should be similar to your city. I think that will happen just because we now kind of couple their economies. So if your economy doesn't grow, the other city also doesn't have as much potential to grow. Alright, let's see if that works. So now, if just not with nothing happening, we should see, yeah, exactly, the production grows ridiculously. Alright, so let's keep that growth factor, implement all the sale demands and consumption, and then we can reduce the factor to something very subtle. Alright, now for all daily sales, each sold resource, update daily sales, sold resource, right? And then do the same for consumption. Consumed resource, consumption. So now we should just see everything grow out of proportions ridiculously. Yeah, seems to work. So now let's reduce that factor to something small, like maybe 1% or even less. And yeah, we can't even notice that now, but it's very slowly growing. So let's see what this means if we now build a city in this environment. And just watch it grow. Yeah, I think that's still too much growth. Yeah, that just increases ridiculously. Alright, let me see text numbers. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to do, to balance the like inherent growth of that neighboring city and the reaction of the city to you. I mean, right now we are still dealing with direct neighboring cities, but that's true. Airports or connections to the greater region or even world would of course be less affected. Nice to have you. I'm not trying to pronounce your name because I think I can only offend you. And yes, always I will archive it, of course. Alright, so our growth factors are still way too ridiculous, so let's maybe do it like this, so it grows slower. Let's see again. I mean, we can also do something more intelligent in a second and actually make it grow or shrink randomly, because we obviously don't want to have just growth. That would be stupid. Yeah, I mean, optimism, pessimism is kind of what I mean when I say speculation, and if you guys want, we can actually work on that next, because I think it will be important for basically anything. Let's speed it up and see if everything still grows as ridiculously. I mean, the problem is right now that the neighboring city can't satisfy all of its needs, so maybe we should even, before we do anything else, implement everything else. So if you do nothing, the neighboring city will slowly satisfy its needs. Okay, but this now looks about right to me. Or at least not strange anymore. What happens if we add shops here? Could you do it so that if your neighboring city is doing better than yours, that people move to that city? Well, yes, but I think the kind of obstacles to people moving in real life are really quite big. So it's not enough if the other city just is a little better, but your city actually has to suck for people to do that, I think. But it isn't implemented yet. Alright, so let's actually make sure the neighboring city can slowly reach its own equilibrium first before we implement speculation. Yeah, let's just see how far we get with that. So we did so far just food and raw materials. Let's add products. I mean, this will just be a huge function, but whatever. Additional products produced per worker. Buy 6 spider. Good luck at work. Okay, so let's actually structure this a little bit, because it's just way too long. Production. I think we covered all production: food, products, raw materials, right? Is that everything? Yes. So next, sales. Let's start with food again. Oh, oops, just here. Sales, food is smaller. Right. I don't think so. I think I agree more with Textmer that the more important thing really is the economy and which city has or offers more work. Something like happiness or satisfaction is only a smaller factor and often correlates with the economic power of the city, I guess. But we will get to that soon. Alright. Additional food to sell. Oops. Food sold per, what is it? Food sold per salesman. Okay, what else? We need to sell products. Let's change that to selling. Products. Additional products to sell. And here we have products sold per salesman. And I think we're only missing services now. Let's call this so services. Services sold per businessman. All right. Okay, we're almost done. What do you mean NC mechanism? Yeah, I also think that the individual people should decide to move. I mean, no, it's just, I mean, it kind of breaks even because as soon as they move out of the city, you don't have to calculate them anymore. And you need to calculate their happiness anyways, so that's not really a problem. Alright, so now the neighboring city should be able to slowly take care of its own needs if you give it enough time. Let's see if that indeed happens. Of course, it doesn't take care of its need for work. Okay, let's check again. What does it do? Shop. Product production doesn't seem to get satisfied. That's strange. Sell demands neither. I wonder why that is. Yeah, exactly. Thus, you don't also have to calculate that as often. Why doesn't it satisfy everything? That's kind of strange. Maybe because that gets cancelled out by its natural growth. Yeah, maybe the natural growth is too strong and it can't react quickly enough to itself, so let's make that even more slower. Yeah, what do you mean you don't know if that's possible? Of course it's possible to take different decisions more or less frequently. Alright, let's try again if the city can do it now. Yeah, slowly but surely it's doing that. Doesn't seem to be able to satisfy all of them. Okay. Let me think a little bit about what's happening. I also completely forgot about one other thing, that of course new factories and so on also create new demands for services and products that they use. Let me think about that for a second. Yeah, okay, so of course if we produce food, we have to also add that. Oh, okay, but that's not as important. The important part is right now that the city also creates new citizens, so Yeah, so let's do that. If total daily sales of work are smaller than the consumption, additional citizens to create is let's say 3. Work is offered, and now we consume more food, because I want to actually try that scenario that Lord Sleepyhead described. What happens if you only zone industrial and nothing else? So we will increase the consumption of food products and services, right? Food. And we will increase that by additional citizens to create times food consumed per citizen. We will do the same for products consumed per citizen, and services. Services consumed per citizen, yes. Have you implemented a way for the neighboring cities to reduce their production if you fulfill the demand in your city? No, but this leads us to an important point which I didn't implement it yet, and which I think would solve many of the problems, and that is that we don't have any form of competition right now. Like if there is some demand for products, businesses will just try to perfectly fulfill exactly this demand. But in real life, you would have some overlap between the businesses trying to fulfill the same demand, which of course leads to more growth. And we will, by implementing that, we will fix both the problem locally and with the neighboring cities. All right. So now the neighboring city should also be able to fix its desire for work. So we should be able to, for example, just create an industrial city. Does that work? Exceptions. Food consumed. Oh, sorry. City. Do you mean for the natural growth or for the reaction? Alright, services, food, but not work. Why not work? Ah, whoops, I should change this to... Alright, now it's kind of doing everything at the same time. Okay, but the reason that I don't want to use a factor there is that different resources might have different reaction times. Do you know what I mean? Like it might be harder to build factories than to build farms, for example. So that's why I want to use different factors actually. Alright, so let me... What's happening here now? Let's speed this up. Let's for a second just completely remove the natural growth because I think it's making stuff more complicated. See what happens. Basically nothing happens. That's interesting. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, but no, okay. If we give it enough time, it seems to have fixed its own desires. Of course, it's always fluctuating a little bit. But now we can try, for example, just building industrial and see how it reacts. So if we have a factory and it will... I mean, let's just try building everything but residential and see if the neighboring city can deal with that. So now we have a lot of demand for work. Let's see if that goes down over time. Alright, it doesn't seem to be able to create enough citizens, even if we speed it up more. Oh no, it did it. That's interesting. So what if we create more shops? What will happen? Again, we will get a lot of demand for residential. And after some time we should see that go down again. See a lot, Sleepy. Thanks for your comments. Ah, again, I missed how it went down. Okay, yeah, it seems like the neighboring city, if we really speed up time, it will slowly react. But obviously we will be able to react quicker. Yeah, it actually seems kind of what I was going for. But now everything is fluctuating quite a bit. I wonder why that is. What the hell? Why is that happening? Right, the neighboring city doesn't seem to be doing anything right now, but why is our city fluctuating so heavily? That's interesting. Just because the numbers are very large now, like our neighboring city grew a lot. And that's why we get the fluctuations. So maybe just to try things out, let's make this knowledge imperfection, let's just set it to 0 for testing purposes so we can actually see what's happening. Try doing the same thing again. So let's build some shops. And speed things up. Alright, so now we seem to have reached an equilibrium. And this is now a true equilibrium because there's no uncertainty about any of the factors. So do we even have demand for residential? I don't think so. Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly you mean with your progressively more passive-aggressive comments about me reading up on economic science. The problem is, I think, even if I knew exactly how real-life economy works, it's really hard to abstract that in a way that I can implement that in the game. I mean, I'm sure I understand supply and demand, and kind of in a rough way how speculation works, for example, how investment works. But the problem is, how do I implement that in the game in a way that it actually models that? And that's why I need to think about it kind of anyways. But if you have some like concrete suggestions, I'm always open to that. Okay. How about we do another short session of Q&A and then let's try to get a little bit more done. Alright, I'll be right back. Let's do a short session of Q&A. What happens if you zone residential over commercial zones? Nothing, because I didn't allow the buildings to replace each other yet. You would, if you want them to be replaced, you would have to change the zones and delete the buildings by hand if you want to force that. Today we continued working on neighboring cities and made them have an evolution so they can react to the demands of your city and the demands of their own city. So they will actually try to slowly solve their own demands by creating kind of abstract businesses in their city, as you can see here. And the idea is that basically the other city will react to changes in the economy similarly to how you would, but slower than you. So you can either choose to use the economy to your favor in your city, or if you ignore it, the neighboring city will slowly make use of that. So that's kind of where you can decide how you want to specialize your city. It's not working exactly like I wanted right now, but at least we implemented the possibility of it changing at all, and I will think about that some more in the future. All right. Alright, could you make the zone a mixed zone? You mean if you zone over them? Right now that's not how it works. Right now the mixed zone is kind of its own dedicated zone that you have to zone, and it will replace the other ones. But maybe in the future there will be a nicer way to create combined zones. I live on an island and therefore we don't have much influence on neighboring cities. Yeah, I mean, the difference will just be the modes of transport that you have to use to import stuff. And it basically just makes everything more complicated, no? I mean, so far I've only been thinking about cities on the mainland, but it's nice to keep the island scenario in mind and what it means for the resources like you describe it. Yeah, that's a good idea, that these kinds of things also expand by themselves. When you had an imperfect knowledge factor, the demand started to swing out of control. How is that factor used? Basically, if you think about it in a very perfect way, the demand is just the difference between production and consumption. And before I had the imperfect knowledge factor, I just calculated the demand exactly like this. But with the imperfect knowledge factor, what it actually gets applied to are the production and consumption rates. So what I did was I basically over or underestimated both the production and the consumption. And if you do that, what happens is if they are very close to another, you will fluctuate between positive and negative. If the difference is very clear, it will stay very clear even with imperfect knowledge. But what it did was it kind of smoothed out the bit where they are almost the same. Because in real life, when they are almost the same, there will still be growth until it's obvious that there is too much production, for example. If there's no road connection to the neighbor, would it still offer workspace and stuff? Right now, yes, but I will of course implement it in a way that you need to be physically connected to a neighboring city for it to become part of your economy. Yeah, this will also become more, more intelligent. Alright, I will do that. Yeah, definitely. There will be failure conditions. It will be very hard to reach them. And the feedback you will get before they actually happen will be very obvious. But it will, of course, still be possible. Bankruptcy, people leave the city, it doesn't have to be revolts. I mean, I guess the most common failure condition would just be that people leave because the city is not a nice place to live. Alright. I don't think that uneducated people are less likely to start riots. Have you thought about how traffic from neighbors would be created simulated? I mean, this was the other option that I asked people if what we want to implement today. We decided to implement evolution today, but as I said, the other part of the agent simulation is also important, that neighbors will actually send cars to your city to go for work or to go shopping, and that's something that I will implement very soon. Yeah, I guess that's what happens. Everyone who can afford to leave will leave, and who can't afford will stay. How detailed will farms be? Will we actually be able to see some crops? Eventually, yes, when I get around to it. Are you going to implement some sort of terrain value? Yeah, there will be a land value system pretty soon. Alright, let's hear your last questions before we continue. And let's actually continue with the other thing that, like where we had a poll earlier where I said let's implement the other part of the agent aspect of neighboring cities. Let's do that next. Have you thought about abandoned buildings yet? Like when a resident leaves their building, will stay there and deteriorate? Yes, I really want that to happen and want that to be visually obvious, but I didn't implement it yet. What are your goals you want to do before releasing the game to publicity? Well, for the first alpha, I want the economy sorted out. I want multi-lane traffic working. And yeah, that's basically it. Economy and traffic should work. And then I will release the first version. Will there be military aspects of the game? Maybe. Maybe there could be something like a military zone. How do simple codes draw buildings? I thought you could only 3D program them, like physically looking at what you're creating. Well, basically how procedural buildings work is you actually program the geometry. So let's say you start with some lot area that you get from this building, and let's not worry about right now where that came from. So what you can do is you say you shrink the area of the lot, and this will give you the building footprint. And now if you have the building footprint, you can extend that up to create the walls. and then you can think about how you geometrically would put a roof on that, and that's basically what the procedural building code does. It's a lot of just doing geometry by hand. Can you build a city without a residential zone? Yeah, we just saw that happen. For example, we just had a little bit of demand for factories, I guess. So let's see if we can create a city with just a factory, or we have demand for shops, so let's make use of that. And yeah, as you can see, we can do cities without residential. Yeah, if you want to see how procedural buildings work in more detail, have a look at the streams where we implemented the apartment buildings. Yeah, that's true. Alright, we'll get some more water and then we'll continue coding. I think I will implement high-rise buildings before the alpha, as soon as traffic allows it. Alright, be right back. I'm sorry, what didn't I reply to? Buildings joined out without gaps on some roads. Yeah, right now the lot generation is random and sometimes you do end up with gaps, sometimes you don't. I don't worry about that right now because I have a major overhaul of the whole lot generation system planned anyways, so I don't try to fix this version because I will just completely rewrite it anyways. And with the new version you should have nice lots without gaps in between them and also more complicated lot shapes. Will you include some Canadian or American buildings? I guess the style I will go for is kind of a mixture between European and American. Alright. So let's actually think about, let's forget about this for a while and maybe let's even disable it again because it might mess with what we want to do next, or doesn't it? Oh no, I think it actually doesn't. I mean, the demand for services goes away too quickly, we can fix that. CUB is all leader. Right. So now let's think about how we wanna actually create kind of fake citizens coming from the other city to work and so on. And for that, let me think about something. Yeah, exactly. We will be reusing what we used for our car debug tool, where we created kind of empty cars. Yeah, it would be a real agent, but a fake citizen, because he doesn't have all the information associated with him. But I'm now thinking about what we actually need to save for our neighboring cities. I mean, the problem is that each business remembers which workers it has, and it also needs to be able to have workers from the neighboring city, but those won't be persistent because, as I said, we want to model them in a more abstract way. So the question is, how do we represent them here? Also taking into account that, for example, farms only start producing food if the workers are at work. So we need to, what do we need to know about those citizens? I mean, we could model them as full citizens and just pretend that they all live in the same building, which is this arrow that represents the neighboring city. We could do that, but then we have to be careful to, of course, not simulate all citizens in the neighboring city, but only those that interact with us. Yeah, that would be nice if that's possible at some point. Why are you worrying about that we're going in the wrong direction? Yeah, sure, but I'm thinking now, do we actually have to create full citizen objects for them, or do we get away with something cheaper? But I think implementation-wise it might be easiest to actually model them as regular citizens and just, as you say, have some kind of flag that sets them as migrants. Yeah. So what we actually have to do is alright, we have to create a citizen. Alright, so this live stream will go another 40 minutes. Because I didn't want the cars to travel for that long for testing purposes only, though. In the end it will be at the edge of the map. Yeah, I understand what you mean, Inge, but I think that actually households in neighboring cities will have a lot in common, and the problem right now is just that we call them also neighboring, that we also call them households. But in reality it just means that households in neighboring cities both are kind of a special case of something more generic that we just don't have a name yet. I hope that makes sense. Alright, so let's actually do that. So we will also add, where is it? Yeah, we will add a member field here. Come on. Alright, so if neighboring city members length is smaller than neighboring city daily consumption of work minus daily sales of work. So basically we have to, the amount of fake citizens we have to create is the difference between how much work the neighboring city itself can offer versus how much it consumes. So if that is smaller, we have to increase it and create fake citizens, yeah. Alright, so yeah, we just create them. Yeah, please ask questions that aren't directly relevant to what we're doing right now in the Q&A sections. That's why I don't answer them. Yeah, drawing the city lines yourself would be nice, but I won't do that for a while. Yeah, that's if you have really long questions, that's a better idea. The more relevant the questions are on stream, the more likely it is that I just immediately answer them. Alright, but back to implementation. Let's actually create our citizens. So at each update, let's create just a few. Alright, let's create 10 at a time, let's say. Alright, and by them being regular citizens, they should also, yeah, they will try to find a job. Alright, let me think about that. Does that make sense? Yeah, they will try to find a job. Okay, and let's give them a special flag. Let's call it foreign. Usually that's false, but now set them as foreign. Right now that doesn't mean anything, but we might make use of that later. Alright, see you, Fifing. And I think that should even do the trick initially. Let's see if that works. So if we create just shops, for example. I mean, we have demands for shop and we have demand for work. Okay, we get in a 517, what is it? Members, what is undefined? Oh, well, where did I add that? Here, that's stupid. I should of course add it here. Alright, let's try again. Just zone business, see what happens. Alright. So we get this exception. Let's try to see where it came from. Cannot read property destination building of no. Let me think for a second. Ah, we have to set the household, of course. So let's open a second view into this file. Look at how we do it here. Worker household create. Yeah. We have to do this, of course. Oh, where is it? All right. Let's try again. And now we can see we have employees, even though, and these citizens in our city, even though we didn't zone any residential yet. And if we look at the border of the map, we should see cars coming from our neighboring city. Perfect. So by implementing them as kind of regular citizens, we immediately get all of the functionality that we wanted. Of course, we can now combine this. Let's see here. Why don't we get any? Oh, okay. Because there's a small bug. So now we actually have all kinds of interaction that we wanted. We can actually try to find out so if we citizens filter and see how many of them are foreign. C.foreign, and we get the length of that. Whoops. So wow, we actually have 2,000 or almost 3,000 workers from the neighboring city, and 183 in our own city. Okay, but we have one problem, and that is that the neighboring, these fake citizens that we create could get a job at another neighboring city. But that's fine because we also want through traffic. So, okay, let me think about this. Even if we do nothing at all, we should see people moving between the two neighboring cities, which is really neat in a way. Yeah, look at this. We do nothing and we get citizens from one neighboring city who have a job at the other neighboring city. Isn't that awesome? How many do we have? We have no of our own and 840, and they're constantly growing. So yeah, but we've got the basic functionality working. I think there are some edge cases that we need to keep in mind. For example, let me think about, I have a feeling that we create too many fake citizens for the neighboring city. But maybe not. So do these fake citizens remember where they work like normal citizens? Yes, exactly. They are now completely like normal citizens. And that's really nice because, yeah, they completely behave like normal citizens. They might even go shopping in our city now. But the problem is that, of course, we have to simulate all of them. And the question is if we don't maybe create too many of them. But I mean, no, I mean, they completely reflect the amount of economic interaction that there is between the cities. And if there is a lot of economic interaction, that should happen. I mean, the problem right now probably just is that that our initial demands of the neighboring city are too high. Let's see. Because, for example, each city, I mean, let's maybe disable our the growth and evolution of our neighboring city, because I think that also makes things grow out of proportion. Yeah. Oops. Let's see what it looks like if we just use our initial demands. We have some demand for work. So let's see, our neighboring city. Wait, no. Households 0. For example, the first neighboring city, it consumes 300 work and sells 200 work, so it requires work actually. And yeah. So in a scenario, if you have 3 cities line up in a row and you are the city in the middle with through traffic, yeah, that could work exactly. Because people can already go shopping on the way back from work within one city, and now to them it's not really different, so the scenario works. And I think this is why it was a very good decision to actually model the neighboring cities as households, because now just by implementing a little bit or reusing what we already have, we get all of these nice phenomena that we would have to re-implement otherwise. Hi Maddie MCP, we only have like 25 minutes left, but I hope it will still be interesting. Alright, so okay, so now with how many do we have now with this difference? I mean, each city has too little work. But yeah, I think I made a thinking mistake. Because let me think about that. Each city requires work but doesn't have enough of its own. So how can it even send workers? There's a thinking error somewhere there. Yeah, that's completely stupid what I just did. Because of course we don't want to create fake citizens if our... Oh, let me think. If our daily... No, I should do it the other way around, because if our daily consumption is higher, it of course means that our citizens are going there for work, but we actually want to create fake citizens if the city has, if the neighboring city has an oversupply of workers. So I just did it the completely wrong way around. So yeah, if it sells more work than it consumes, then it should create fake citizens, exactly. So now if we do that, we see that both cities don't have enough workers, and now we shouldn't see any fake citizens created, right? So, but what happens if okay, now let's re-enable the evolution of our city. And let's see if this works. I mean, what will happen now is it creates citizens, so it slowly fixes its own demand for work. Let's wait for that to go down completely. I hope it will. It doesn't do that. I wonder why. That's strange. Yeah, factoring in distance is another unrelated problem though. I first have to get the supply and demand differences right. Okay, let me think. So how about we start off the city with exactly the amount of work that they need, which is they need 300, and let's have them sell 300. So initially there should be exactly no demand for work. Correct. So now if we, for example, create shops, which there is demand for, now there's suddenly demand, and our neighboring city should start creating citizens to take care of this demand. It looks like it froze. What happened? Oh no, it didn't. So it creates citizens. Okay, but that still doesn't make sense. Okay, I have to look at this more with more care. It's not if we have an oversupply, but if let me think. If Yeah, just if the sales are bigger. Yeah, is that correct? Oh no, that's not correct. Hold on, I have to think a little bit about it. Yeah, I think I know what you mean, but I don't think that we need to distinguish them in that way. I think it can be done simpler, but I'm having a knot in my thoughts right now. Yeah, there are two right now. Let me think. What is the condition that we want to create these fake citizens? I mean, we have I think we somehow have to incorporate our total consumption. Yeah. Let me think. I mean, the problem is that the macroeconomy doesn't really care where someone works. It just cares about the balance between supply and demand of work. So we kind of have to think about how much of people actually commute and how do we figure that out. Yeah, I think I'm actually stuck a little bit and need to think about it, so let's do the final Q&A now. Let's do... Right. Would the imperfect knowledge factor affect whether neighboring... No, it doesn't have anything to do with that. Alright. Oh, I see what you mean, that you don't create a road, for example, as soon as you let go of the mouse button, that if... But instead that if you let go, you see what will happen and you can adapt it before you actually want to commit to your operation. Is that what you mean? Let's eat the last of Inge's delicious cookies. Yeah, also let me re-announce that this Saturday is there won't be any stream because I will be in Prague the whole weekend, but you will see me again on Tuesday. Yeah, they only lasted 2 days. I never counted actually, and I'm too lazy to get that tool that counts it for you. But my estimate is around 6,000 or 7,000 lines of code. iMachine is basically beat or music creation app for the iPhone and iPad. And I really like doodling around. I guess you asked because you saw my video on that, where I do something with it. Before you create your city in the future, would there be a choice if you wanted and that neighboring city to exist? The problem is without any neighboring cities, where do you get your initial demand from? This isn't really like a settlers game where you can have self-sustained everything. So what would that mean even? Will there be a region overview, and yes, will the region budget? Okay. As I said earlier, I will focus on just building one city first. I will think about regions later, but first I will just think about one region, and the neighboring cities will just be your abstract environment. Can you shortly sum up what you did today? Okay, sure. First, we made neighboring cities evolve based on your interaction with them and the kind of the demands of the whole economy. So they will actually, if there is a lot of demand for something, they will also try to fix it and kind of are in competition with you, but they will do so more slowly. So basically every time there is a demand, you can decide that you want to take care of that demand in your city and maybe profit from that. Or if you don't do anything about it, the neighboring city will slowly fix it. So that's what we did in the first part. And in the second part, we tried to implement agents traveling from the neighboring city to our city to work there or to shop there. And the way we did that was to actually create fake citizens that work like normal citizens that just live at this invisible building that the neighboring city has. And they, by doing that, they already can do stuff like work in our city, go shopping in our city, or go to work in other neighboring cities, and by doing that become kind of pass-through traffic. The problem is that I have a small logical error in the amount of these fake citizens that I create. I need to figure out the correct way to calculate how many of those to create, because you should of course only create those that actually travel through your city. All the other ones, all the other citizens of the neighboring city, you don't need to care about, and they don't need to be simulated. No, I'm not from Czech Republic. I live in Germany, but I just want to check out Prague because I heard it's a really nice city. Yeah, but where would the initial demands come from if there's no one there? What will the max amount of lanes be? Right now there isn't a max amount. You can just create, and let's do that just because for how ridiculous it looks. You can do something like let's create like a really large amount of lanes. Do you see that? That's crazy, right? And now we can even connect that to this road, and it will figure out like this huge intersection to draw. Looks a little bit ugly, but it creates everything that is needed. So there's no maximum limit on number of lanes. Yeah, I understand what you guys are getting at, but what kind of demand would you have in a deserted area? Where would that come from? Maybe I can't think of anything yet, but let me know. Alright, how much growth do you think should occur in NPC cities that is completely independent of your development? Well, this is kind of a environmental parameter that you can set. For example, you could try building a city in an environment where everything grows really quickly, or if you want more of a challenge, you could try building a city in an environment where everyone else is kind of in decline and try to still make it work. So that is really up to modification, I think. Would it be easy for a modder to create buildings? Yeah, buildings are actually one of the easiest mods to create, and I think you, for example, you say every 3 or 4 days, I think you can create a new building type in like 2 days. That's my estimate. Yeah, but why would they move there? Can you draw the intersection between 2 giant roads? Yes, sure. Let's create 2 giant roads and an intersection between them. And it looks like this, for example. How much modders will be allowed to do? Pretty much anything, because most of the game logic will be, the source of that will be available to you if you buy the game, and anything that's in there can be modified by modders. Will the game have a tool to measure distance from one point to another? Yeah, there will be a tool like this, and also guidelines that you can create to kind of construct everything geometrically how you want it. If other cities slowly grow, you probably could exploit it and just let them, for example, build work first. Then you could just destroy all your shops and the agents may go to the other neighboring city where it will create shops. Yeah, we'll have to think about making this not too exploitable. Yeah, I will have to think about it. I don't have any thoughts on that right now. Will there be a tool to create roundabouts automatically? Yes. Will there be some sort of planning feature with guidelines? Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I just described. I'm stuck on the amount of fake citizens that I have to create. Basically, the question is, how many people in the neighboring city come to my city to work there, or to another neighboring city to work there? Because that's the amount of fake agents that I need to create. The problem is that I didn't figure out how to calculate that number correctly yet, but it's probably an easy thing, I'm just not seeing it right now. What about roads connected to elevated roads? Yeah, sure, that's possible. Why would that not be possible? I mean, it will just create a ramp, no? Yeah, the reason why there are these gaps between roads right now is only because I didn't implement proper road decoration like lines yet. So I just did it so I can actually see the individual lanes and debug everything easier. As soon as I implement road decoration, the roads will of course be gapless. Can you remove an intersection without removing the roads? Yeah, yeah, I think, I mean, you can do, for example, we can remove this intersection by only removing those lanes. And now it's basically an uninterrupted road. Oh, there's some interesting stuff here. That's probably a bug. Yeah, the problem is it's not just a percentage, but I think we actually have a way to exactly figure out the amount of people who commute. Yeah, that's a nice idea. And also, yeah, exactly. Randomized chance of them wanting to move you to your city. I mean, that's most likely if they already work in your city, then it's very likely that they will also move there soon. Do you get tired of answering the same or near same questions? What do you mean, especially if no one answers them? I mean, I get the same questions a lot. I think the only one that starts to annoy me is about why I use JavaScript, but other than that, I'm just glad about interest in the game, and I'm happy to answer intelligent questions again, like very easy questions that are also in the FAQ. People can just read up on that, but everything else I'm happy to answer because it forces me to kind of think about what's really important again and again. Do you plan on implementing different types of roads with different speeds? Yes. Did you already discuss citizens transporting to work or shops by airport? No, I didn't discuss that yet because I won't implement that right now. I will, as I said, first make everything work with just cars and then add different transportation modes as soon as that works. All right, last questions, please, then I'll wrap it up. Yeah, that's a good idea to also take into account the quality of the job and how far people are willing to travel. Why do I have a baseball hat? Because as I said earlier, my hair looks like a bird's nest today. I have a bad hair day and I'm trying to hide that. In Germany it's 6 p.m. now, as you can see. It's always a little difficult trying to decide when to do the live streams. I try to always at least keep America in mind. But yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to add more random demands there that you can because at first I think it's realistic that there's some fluctuation, and I want to reward the player for noticing these random surges in demand and making use of them. So I will add that. All right, any other questions? Yeah, as I said, it's always hard to find a good time for everyone. Alright, but then I'll wrap it up here. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me repeat again, on Saturday there won't be a live stream because I'm in Prague over the weekend, but you will see me again on Tuesday in the next update, and then in live streams again next week. Yeah, have a nice evening, morning, night, whatever it is, and see you all soon. Bye.